Michelangeli. Vining.
She's excused.
Here. Moore.
Here.
Fowler.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. I'd ask you all please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We are grateful for the resources of this land and for the freedom which has been its heritage. Inspire our city officials to serve with fairness, humility, and integrity, and to work for the welfare of this community and all its residents.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item, please.
The first item are citizen comments.
Any comments from those present here this evening? Any comments from the start of the meeting? There'll be an opportunity, of course, at the close of the meeting as well. See no comments. Next item, please.
The next item is item 2304, Spire Development Presentation and Discussion.
Thank you. I know Mr. Pestu. I'll just turn it right over because our purpose for our special meeting this evening.
Thank you, Your Honor, thank you, Your Honor, and City Council for this special meeting tonight. I know we've talked about it on a couple of occasions briefly at past meetings, but there's enough detail that we have to go through, I think, and I didn't want it clouded with a time constraint at a work session or even competing with other items on the regular agenda. So I do appreciate you giving us a special meeting to go through some of the details. So first slide is just an overview of, if you will, an agenda for tonight. And part of the structure of it is you'll see the last item is discussion regarding affordable housing incentives. Rather than start with that, I thought we could probably go through some of the details with the proposed Spire development project and then conclude with that. I didn't want to have a discussion that may take a while only to find out you didn't like the details. So let's go through with this. And so, again, we'll do a quick overview of the project, talk about the land use considerations with the PUD and conceptual site plan, the proposed sale of the fire station, an adjoining property that the county owns with the parking lot, and then a parking memorandum with the city and the county. Talk a little bit about payment in lieu of taxes, housing market analysis from the target market analysis that was done by, I believe, Land Use USA in 2017. The downtown master plan as it contemplates this, and then in the broader sense, let's have the policy discussion regarding affordable housing incentives. So with that, I'm going to ask Mark if he could step up to the podium and provide us, again, a broad overview of the proposed project that Spire has presented to us.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Council. Mark Cochran, Assistant City Manager and Economic Development Coordinator. As Vince mentioned, I'm going to give a brief overview of the project as we've discussed in the past few meetings. Not going to go too in-depth, more than what we've heard in the past, but again, Spire Development in partnership with Fairfield Homes out of Columbus, Ohio, has approached us with a proposal to build a 40 to 50 rental housing unit development on the site of the existing fire station. They're proposing a 4-story building with a surface parking lot for the residents. They are targeting general occupancy for this project, meaning looking at young professionals, working families, and seniors. The project would be incentivized through the low-income housing tax credit program with the state of Michigan through MISTA, and their application for that is due on April 1st. I did list the 5 things that need to be completed before April 1st as part of the application. They do need to secure, of course, control of the site between the 2 city lots and also the county-owned parking lot. Have a site plan approval, zoning approval, payment in lieu of taxes agreement with the city, have that approved along with a letter of support from the city. And then they have signed the agreement to proceed with the market study as well. So those are the things that need to be accomplished before April 1st. And then as a reminder, they are proposing that this development would be LEED certified or certified through the Enterprise Green Communities Construction Program for Energy Efficiency. So any questions on the proposed overview so far? Okay. A reminder of the project schedule. So April 1st, 2019 is the application deadline. They would hope to hear around July or August whether they've been awarded the notification or awarded the LIHTC credit. They would begin construction in summer of 2020, and the project would open in summer of 2021. So as the application is due April 1st, and there's some pretty stringent requirements that are needed before that, I'm going to lay out the timeline on how quickly or how swiftly we need to move some of this through. And this is the project schedule that we've provided to the developer as well. So we've asked them by February 11th to have the concept plan submitted to the city so that we can provide that to City Council as well as the Planning Commission and the Historic District Commission. At the next council meeting, well, on February 19th during the council work session, we would present and have a discussion on the planned unit development conceptual plan that we would receive from them, that administration has discussed with them, as well as the pilot agreement. February 20th, we would schedule a Historic District Commission meeting for their review and then also their recommendation to the Planning Commission, which would meet at a special meeting on February 25th to consider the PUD rezoning as well as the PUD agreement. That leads us into March. At the first council meeting in March, we would introduce the ordinance to rezone the site for the planned unit development and schedule a public hearing for March 18th. We would also introduce the ordinance for the payment in lieu of taxes or the pilot agreement and also schedule the public hearing for that on March 18th. And then finally on March 18th, hold the public hearing and the second reading and have it up for adoption, the PUD rezoning, as well as the pilot agreement and also, or the pilot, and also consider the planned unit development agreement that goes along with the rezoning. Any questions on the proposed timeline so far?
Yeah, that's okay, Your Honor. I think the timeline to me is unacceptable. It's almost the way that the timeline is set up. It's almost like the council has to pre-approve everything right now in order to meet each one of these deadlines. And if I'm not mistaken, this same group was in town last year to propose a development over by the Whistle Stop, and they came into town 3 months before that application was due and asked the city to jump through a bunch of hoops to put that application in process. And although I'm not in favor of this particular project, I also know that MISTA has a second round of LIHTC in October. So why aren't they going for the October schedule to allow the city time and all of its commissions and authorities the opportunity to do their due diligence?
So they were in town last year on the proposed development near the Whistle Stop, and we decided at that time we couldn't get everything done within the tight time period. And then the reason they're coming back now as opposed to last fall is they wanted to see how the awards came through for MISTA last fall and see how a project in Monroe would score up against some of the projects that were reviewed last year. There is the October 1st, and they've said that if they don't meet the October or the April 1st deadline or it's not awarded April 1st, they would submit for October 1st.
It is a very, very aggressive schedule to get through that. And so, I think one of our, particularly with the PUD component of it, working on the details associated with the rezoning, but also the conceptual site plan is a lot, as well as putting together the agreement. So, internally we think we could do it if things move along and progress well. But it is, make no mistake about it, a very, very tight time frame for action. So. One of the aspects of it is also to discuss the purchase of the fire station. Their proposal from Spire is $1, with them incurring the demolition cost associated with it. I gave you a handout that came from City Assessor Sam Geisch. As you look at it, there's a couple of different boxes in there. The one below represents would look like for that parcel. This would be the parcel that is where the current fire station is, and he's got a range from 0 to 50, and didn't put a whole lot of confidence in it without putting some more analysis in it. We know that the county is actually doing an appraisal on their parking lot, and that probably will be ready here shortly. But we did contact a contractor with that we've done business with to take a look at what that demolition cost would look like for that. Gave us an estimate of $75,000, which at first seemed very low to us, and then as they explained that there's a lot of room for them to work, to locate their equipment, but it also has a very not a lot of walls, particularly on the first floor, which is very, very open. So they didn't think there'd be a lot of debris necessarily to be hauled away. The one thing we don't have is an environmental remediation costs if there's any asbestos or any other product. But clearly, as a purchaser, they would be certainly doing their phase 1, 2, and potentially the baseline environmental. The essence of all this is, particularly with the demolition cost associated with it, I would be comfortable with the $1 offer, and they incur the demolition cost. I think there is some uncertainty with the level of remediation, and based on our estimate that we have for the parcels themselves, if they were a clean slate, I think the risk would be borne by the prospective developer for that risk, particularly with the remediation. So we had a little more time, and we do have some to do more a little analysis on it. But at this point, I think I'd be comfortable going forward with the proposal that they have. Thoughts, questions?
I guess comments on Councilman Lamar?
Yeah, not necessarily a comment, just do we have a map of the site?
Yes. I think it's at, yeah. Do you want like a Google aerial, something like that, or?
I think that'd be fine.
Yeah,
That would work.
okay. So.
Just to get a general idea of what we're looking at here.
Yeah, sure. I think
the
it's.
project.
Yeah. I know Mark and I had talked about it earlier today, having that access. So if there was some questions to go to the web for some of the information.
As Mark pulls that up, to the other questions for Vince regarding the purchase items or discussion on the lots. Okay. Councilman Jimmy?
What is the estimated costs for the demolition of that site? Do you know?
Well, the 75,000 that we had, came from a contractor that's done some work for us on other projects, and again, I'll be candid with you. When it first came at that number, now this was independent of the remediation there may be for any environmental or any asbestos abatement, if any at all. But we thought it was low. We were probably mentally up in the 150 to 200 range, and then as the contractor explained it to one of our engineering tech that's been doing a lot of the demolition projects for us, he just said, look, there's a lot of room for them as a contractor to work. There's no houses or anything else right on top of them that they have to be a little more careful with. And so they, and as they said, obviously with the bays there for the fire apparatus, it's open. So there isn't necessarily a lot of debris and material that would, you typically find with a 2 or even 3-story building of that stature. So, based on their experience and their understanding of the building, they thought that the demolition piece alone would be somewhere in that ballpark. And that's all we could ask them, in the absence of having going through and bidding it out or even putting together a detailed spec that we just needed something to get us in what we thought was a reasonable number in the ballpark.
And they would choose the company, not us. Spire would choose
they
the
would.
demolition company,
Yeah.
correct?
And candidly, the rationale for us looking at it is, and again, with, maybe a little bit time, if we had an appraisal on it, compare it with what we would know, we'd probably have one of our environmental companies give us a little more detailed estimate and maybe even a little more environmental background work. What I wanted to get to a point was, would I be comfortable telling you to, sell it for $1 if they're going to knock it down themselves? I am comfortable with that, based on, the information I've received so far on the land value, not only from Mr. Geisch, but also the equalization director provided Mr. Basanic at the county with an estimate for their parcel that's got 32 spaces on it. So I'm comfortable with that we're not giving it away. That developer, and again, the fact that the developer would incur some risk associated with whatever environmental work would go with that. So,
The map is up there, so I
Yep,
don't know if you
so-
want to, Councilman?
Yeah, just, I see that this encompasses Scott, First, and Wadsworth and Humphrey there. How much of that block would this project take?
Well, in its entirety, we'd be looking at, if you start over at Wadsworth, where that alleyway comes in back in behind the county parking lot, and proceed kind of in a northwesterly direction. If you just took that line and extended it to Scott Street, that roughly would be the property that we would be looking at for the project.
Thank you.
Other questions on the location? I think in county for the lots as they currently sit? Okay.
Can we jump back to the PowerPoint now that we've got that up? We won't be going away from, we can, yeah. And I think that's where we left it at this point in time. Next item that we have here is, a payment in lieu of taxes. It would be an eligible project for that, rather than having the traditional ad valorem tax levied for this type of project. It does qualify for a payment in lieu of taxes. And so what we asked from Spire is just to give us an estimate of what we would be looking at with different calculations. So they provided this sensitivity analysis and table, if you will. Shows you what the gross income is, less a 2% vacancy. And I'm going down the left margin from the top on down. So you got an effective rental rate, and looking at the 50 units, it's a little over 413,000. And then one of the other conditions that is applied is sponsor paid utilities. And there's a formula that they would work with MSHDA and applying it to the units themselves. So what you would come down to is what's the annual shelter rent, a little over, for again, using the 50 unit by way of example, $354,705 as a base. And then on top of that, they did request 5% on a pilot, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But you can see what those rates would look if it was 5, 6, 7, or 8. The Norman Towers project has 10%, but they also applied it if there was a 48-unit project, 45, and 40. And if you recall from the conversation a week ago Monday, that part of what will drive the number of units is the market analysis that they have. So this is clearly an estimate. And again, using the term sensitivity analysis gives you a sense in a general manner what that would look like. The other thing with it is I need to bring to your attention is the payment in lieu of taxes. And so at 5%, you'll see that the amount generated overall would be $17,735.26. Again, an estimate. The portion of it is that under a payment in lieu of taxes, what they provide as far as a pilot payment is dispersed proportionately to all the other taxing entities. So if you recall, and we use the DTE example, is roughly the city is going to be a little over 30% of the tax base. So we'd get 30-something percent, probably a little better than $5,000 a year. The state education tax would get a portion. The non-homestead, those are the two big, largest taxpayers that would benefit, but also the county community college, a portion of the ISD as well, and then certainly the library in Monroe Public Schools. So, but the point of this is a total amount, and it would be dispersed based on the proportionate millage levy that would be for all of those taxing entities. So, just doing a quick estimate, if it was agreed upon to do a 5% and these numbers carried through, you'd be getting a little over $5,000 a year. So the aspect of it, you can go as high as 10%. And again, that's the Norman Towers amount that was approved a few years ago. So, but I thought it important for you to understand the structure of how it's calculated and how the rate is applied and how it's dispersed. And again, the different rates that would be calculated. So,
Questions? Councilman Felder.
Mr. City Manager, how does this compare to a more traditional model?
I did a quick calculation, and again, bear with me while I should have had this handy dandy, and I meant to, but Mr. Geisch and I were kind of calculating, let's just use 50,000 or the 50 unit, and he was estimating, maybe from a fair market value of 50,000 cost per unit. And so you would multiply that 50 by 50,000, comes up to 2.5 million. Half of it would be, that first number, the 2.5 would be the fair market value. The SEV would be, half of that. And we usually end up discounting it a little bit. And so if you use maybe a factor of 90%, comes to a little over 1.125 million for your taxable value that you would have for a project like this. And then multiply, in our case, we're levying a little over 17 mills. You'd be looking at something around 19,000, for example, if you were to do that compared to whatever amount you would come to. So if you, and I'll use by way of example, if you carried the 10% down on the pilot, you'd be almost a little over 35,000, 30%. You'd have in excess of $10,000 per year you would see. So the 19,000 versus 10,000 would be what would come to the city general fund roughly for the two of them. So
the 19 would be before or after disbursement?
That would be after disbursement. That would be our share.
So it's
that come to the city.
It's a good deal less then.
Oh, and there's no doubt about it that the pilot does not cover 100% of what it would be if it was an ad valorem. But part of it is, and that's part of the question tonight, is the incentive aspect of it. Obviously with through the MISHTA program, there's an incentive that they value, but also the pilot does provide that as well from a city standpoint. Questions, thoughts?
Other questions?
We can always come back to them too, so. So county parking lot, we've had some discussion with Mike Bosonic, and he's had some discussion with the church across the street, the Solid Rock Church. They have a lease agreement with that. I think very supportive of development in the downtown. What they have are 32 parking spaces at that location. If we're looking at a memorandum of understanding with the county, they certainly would be looking at a replacement equal to or better than that. And candidly, I think I'd be very comfortable with it, but it starts moving us in a direction where we need to be more engaged with parking management rather than just keep adding surface lots there. And I say that because if part of it is if you go to our, went back to our Google Maps aerial there, I'll talk a little bit about it, but you know, we, in a couple of locations, know we can add some additional parking and manage, I should say additional parking by assigning it, we can start meeting the demand that we need to recover the 32 spaces, and actually in some ways move it a little bit closer to you know, the county building. So if you look at that, you can see there on the far lower left, you'll see the municipal lot. There is plenty, or I shouldn't say there's plenty, but there is surplus parking there on a regular basis. And so some of what would have to be involved with is starting to allocate those individual spaces for employees. I think we can get up to 84 spots, and you know, we got 48 employees here in City Hall and 16 vehicles that park there on the west side of for the various departments that are out in the field. Long and the short of it is there is capacity to, you know, I'm guessing between 12 and 16 spaces. If you can scroll over a little bit further west, great, yep, keep going. You know, one of the things Mr. Bosonic and I have been talking about is on Washington Street, between 2nd and 1st, potentially looking at going to more angled parking and assigning that parking to employees. You can easily get 12 spots in there. You wouldn't be looking at changing much, if any, the curb line in there, and it would provide an opportunity for that parking to be available on weekends, and certainly with the church across the street for the services that they would have. But it starts to utilize our existing resources a lot more effective. We can get 12 in there. You know, and I think I'm comfortable committing 10 to 12 there. The other thing at the city lot, and then we make up the balance. We have other options that we could contemplate. I think one of the things that we also know will happen is you're going to have more on-street parking as a result of the fire station no longer there. I mean, that big driveway takes up some parking. And then one of the things excuse me, if we go back to the PowerPoint, one of the points that we make in here is that both the county administrator and myself have said, okay, we need to start more of a parking management plan, if you will, for the city-county complex. And we know there's opportunities. You can just look out at the parking lot right out here at City Hall, and you'll see, you know, a number of vacant spots. So the long and the short of it, I'm very comfortable committing to the replacement of those 32 spots. And more importantly, I think it drives us in the direction that we need to do, which is to start managing parking downtown a lot better than what we probably have been. And so, but in doing that, we would put together, we would look at a memorandum of understanding as to how we would get that, make those, replace those spaces to allow for this development. So thoughts, comments?
Comments on the lots and the parking? Okay.
Good. Now, Mark's going to talk a little bit about the 2017 market analysis. I know that this is what Sharon Woods had provided for us as part of the downtown development project and CDBG project that community development worked on back at that time. So, Mark.
Yep, and so in response, last meeting, we had a question from Councilwoman Vining asking how this project fit into the residential market analysis that the city had completed in 2017. And Vince, if you want to pass out the handout that I provided. It's the executive summary from the housing study, if you haven't had a chance to read it or read through the whole thing. But I'm going to go through some of the segments and give an overview of what the study talked about. So on average, annually, we have about 240 new households that are moving into the city. 83% of those, or 200 of those, are likely to be renters. 17% or 40 of those are likely to be to own a property or own a residence. This is not adjusted for the out-migration of existing households moving to other cities. So this is the gross new households that are moving into the city. So when we break it down even further, the new net rental households, a third of new renters, which is adjusting after the outmigration, will represent the net new households. It was identified in the market analysis that they would be most likely to choose new products if and when they became available as opposed to existing stock. And quoting out of the study, this represents a significant number and suggests a need to add 67 new rental units per year. These new units may include conversions above existing space downtown, adaptive reuse of existing structures, subdivisions of detached houses, including duplexes and triplexes, a remodel of some vacant units, and then also new builds in strategic locations. So when we look at the housing choice preference, most people are looking for the single family housing in one unit. Also, you'll notice that the number of people that are looking for houses mostly are looking for townhouses in the low rise and the mid rise. So about 60 units or more are looking for the low rise, mid rise, or townhouses. So this does not include the people who are moving into the city who may be looking for improved quality of housing as well. So 38% of the new households are inclined to choose the triplex or the larger style buildings. These formats represent only 22% of the existing housing stock. So when you look at the market potential versus the existing housing stock, you'll see that we've got a surplus of single family housing and duplexes, but we've got a deficiency in all the other categories that were identified in the market analysis, including the low rise, mid rise, and the townhouses that were identified as the biggest demand behind single family houses. When we talk about townhouses and row houses, it notes in the executive summary and the rest of the study that there is a need for new choices among moderate to better townhouses and row houses. This meets the demand that 30 new attached units could be added throughout the city each year in buildings with less than 10 units. And they should be income integrated and most likely will be leased by renters as opposed to owned. Under the section that talks about multiplex buildings, which is what the proposed development would be, there is an annual market potential for one larger building with up to 40 units or two smaller buildings with up to 20 units each. They may be low to mid-rise buildings, and the unit sizes should be compact to align with the moderate rent tolerances. So when we talk about the rent tolerances that were pointed out in the housing market analysis, most of the new households have a moderate tolerance for monthly contract rents. There was an identified profound need for choices that have attainable rents for moderate income housing levels to live in the city. 2/3 of the new households are seeking contract rents of less than $600, and only 1/3 of those would tolerate higher rents.
One of the items regarding let me go back. Is there any questions with what Mark just presented? Again, it was just a summary of the executive summary from the.
I guess the only question I have is the housing study that I have did not have the same information that Mark showed. There's a page in the market study where she indicates that there is no need for any type of apartment buildings over 20 units.
In this same study?
In the same study. And that's what I showed council when I did my slideshow.
There were two different sections that I noticed. One talked just about the city, and then there was one that talked about a half-mile radius of the city. And I think that's the graph that you had used in your presentation.
That's the half-mile radius, which is the downtown area.
Half-mile radius from the city of Monroe.
Yeah. From the city of Monroe, but there is no need for apartment houses in that one.
In the half-mile.
Yeah.
But so let me understand this. So the councilman says there was a page that said it wasn't a need, and you're indicating that that page within the study was within the half-mile radius from the downtown, or inclusive. But the page that you're looking at indicates that I'll wait till you find it and you can share what page it's on.
Yeah, it says Monroe half-mile radius.
Is what? Which one?
The one Councilman Angeli is referring to
And
for the overall city.
the overall city is this one. Okay.
The half-mile radius, though, is from the core downtown then? Is that,
I believe, yeah, it's city limits as I believe it.
okay. Thanks. So the center point of that half-mile radius is First and Monroe.
Monroe Street.
Yeah.
Look at the graph, it says that there's no need for apartment houses over 20 units in size. She's recommending within that half-mile radius, townhomes and loft apartments.
Well, I think in some ways, let's carry on to the next one because with the missing middle, I know that in the case of our prospective developer, they looked at certainly this study here and as well as the downtown master plan and felt, well, gee, this would fit, you know, that they're, and I'm gonna say the definition itself of missing middle, whether it's income or whether it's architecture or a combination. But they felt that, you know, based on the reports that we had out there available, that this would be something that would be supported by the community on their interpretation of what that missing middle is, hitting an income level that would be supportable, but also from an architectural standpoint to get the density that would make the project more financially viable. So we put that out there, and this, I think, is actually what Councilmember Angeli had used in an earlier presentation, showing essentially the continuum from duplex up to a much more intense development up to mid-rise in that location. But as I said, you know, initially our prospective developer was looking at missing middle, I think, more in terms of the income aspect of it. So.
Ron, let me just clarify. I think that was the headline in the Monroe Evening News, missing middle housing, and that terminology is used incorrectly. Missing middle housing has nothing to do with income. It's all about architectural form. So if the developer said he's providing missing middle housing, he is not. He is providing mid-rise housing, which is not missing middle. That's the form. But missing middle has nothing to do with income. It's all about density and form. So we can't mix and match the terminology on this. What the developer is proposing is low-income housing that is funded through low-income housing tax credit. And he wants to build an apartment house, which is not missing middle. So that, to me, that's, you know, that's just part of this discussion where these terms are being used. They're being intermingled in order to justify or to advance the project, and it's not. Missing middle housing is like on my block on Washington Street, across the street from my house is a duplex. 2 doors down from me is a house that looks like a single family, but it has 4 apartments. That's missing middle. It's footprints that would exist in a residential neighborhood that look like they're single family, that have more units and create walkability. That's what the downtown master plan was suggesting for the fire station, was for townhomes, in order to have live-work units, the townhouses, and the walkability. So I think when we need to evaluate this project, I think council needs to evaluate, but let's evaluate it fairly, and let's use the appropriate terms. So,
So I have a question, 2 questions, because I hear low-income housing and I hear 2 different things. And maybe that means different from what we're saying here tonight from what we heard or what I've heard before. That's one question I have. What does that mean Because when you say that, sometimes it just escalates people's comment to think that it's the lowest of the lowest and there is no other alternatives. And I think this project, as I heard it, there's alternatives or rent increase, different rents throughout the complex. So I look at this graphic here about missing middle, and it's not a comparison to Monroe in some respects when I look at this, because I look and say, you go to the far right side, you see the mid-riser, what would be kind of a downtown, as I'm assuming, and you go to the other side with the far end, which is detached single-family homes. We don't have 5 blocks between our downtown and our single-family homes. So my question is which of these or all of these could they or should they not fit? I understand the councilman's point of the size and the number of units. And we have the duplexes and we have the homes that are downtown that are near downtown that are being, I'm going to say, divided or split. So then you have to look past that. I'm just trying to see where it's at in here, because why does one work and one not work? Just a question. Trying to understand it. Because this is not the space that we would have in the city of Monroe, moving from the downtown out to the single-family homes.
Well, we've got examples of some of this housing in town, not all of it, some of it. We have triplexes and fourplexes. We have duplexes, we have townhouses down on front. A good example of multiplex, well, those are smaller units, maybe less than 10 or 12 in a building. Those are the ones over here on Elm Avenue, the Del Rio apartments and the one across the street. They don't take up a lot of land, but they have density because they're taller and they have like 8, 10, 12 units in them.
So so I look, when I hear that, then they're intermixed.
They're intermixed.
One block, there's
yes.
the Del Rio, the next one is the triplex and duplex. So it's like there's not going to form exactly along the line from one spectrum to the other as this appears on this graphic. They're going to be interspersed throughout the area around the downtown, if I understand it.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think the reason, Mayor, is that we could take a look at our data. I happened to take a look at SEMCOG's regional housing study because they talked about this, and they said on average, and it's probably true for Monroe, 70% of the housing stock in the region and probably in the city is single family. And they said 20% is apartments, okay? 10, the 20, 30, 40, 50 unit apartment complexes like we have over on Telegraph. 10% of the other units are kind of sprinkled into this middle missing housing categories, which a lot of communities don't have. Now, Monroe does have some of them, but some communities, you're either in a single family home or you're living in an apartment complex, and there is no other type of unit available in the market. So I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. I just want to make sure that what we're talking about is correct. Now, the issue with the low income housing, and I'm not trying to cast any negatives on it, but for the developer to get the tax credit, he has to fill out an application with MSHDA, and he has to indicate that at least 60% of the units are going to be rented to low-income families based on the area median income. So he has to basically guarantee that in order to qualify for the tax credits. So that's kind of incorporated right into the whole process.
So I guess that's part of my question, because when you start saying, low income, everybody has a different thought or definition of what that might or might not bring. And I appreciate the fact it's not saying in a fashion that it's something that's not good. It's just the reality of what people are. And yet that's why I always say, what is that amount? And I think it was presented in there, and that's, I think, things that have to be reviewed again as well and shared with the community, is what does that mean from one spectrum within this project to the other spectrum? Because I know that there's a lot of people that would qualify that I don't think someone would consider low income. That's their income, but where they live. I'm just trying to understand that.
I mean, I can't remember all the data that's in the application, but I think the way that they determined low income was that it's at least 50%. The threshold is 50% of the area median income. And if Monroe has an area, if our household median income is like 50 grand, $50,000, then it would be a family or a person, or maybe one person or two people that their incomes that are within that $25,000 to $30,000 range would be the households that would qualify for the apartment.
What Spire mentioned in their presentation a couple weeks ago is you can actually make up to 80% of the average median income to qualify to live in the development. It used to be 60%, but last year President Trump increased it to 80%. So technically you can qualify to live in the residence if you make 80%. In that range that he provided was between $35,000 and $54,000 annually.
And that's kind of where I'm getting to, because I want to make sure that we understand what that amount is versus in somebody's mind or a community mind or another person's mind, what that number to them might mean. Because I think that's where the actual amount of what it would be and the percent is important to be known. Okay.
Right, because depending on the amount of tax credit they want to get, they have to select one of three options. And one of the options is basically a majority of the units are going to low income. Another option is that some of the units would go low income and some of them would go to the 80% area median income. Depending on what option they select, they get different points, and based on the points, they get different tax credits. So the developer has to pick which one he wants, and I don't know if he's disclosed that to us yet.
I don't think that would happen until they've completed their market analysis to see how they would be able to do that. But, they did provide a pretty broad range of incomes that would qualify for the project at the 80%. And some of them are, starting professionals, that would be qualifying. So,
And getting into that as well, my understanding from what they conversed with us last week was that you can start at a lower income and increase your income and still stay there. Correct me if I'm wrong.
no, that's true.
Don't move into a new unit or move out and then move back in.
For growth in your income.
Mm-hmm.
Mark, if we could go up to the downtown master plan piece for that site. I don't know if we could see that, but you can see that there is almost there on the west end of it. It looks like it's, I don't know how many units they were looking at. Was that, but it's a combination of kind of a mid-level and also it looks like some townhouses there on near Wadsworth there on that side as well.
Plus or minus 18.
Yeah.
Now, Your Honor, when I took a look at the recent LIHTC awards that were in the December round for 2019, I noticed some of the projects have multiple units. So some of the developers are doing what is shown here, where they may have 2, 3, or maybe 5 or 6 buildings on a site, and they have different types of units, and they're still qualifying for the LIHTC credits. So it doesn't just have to be an apartment complex.
That's not what they're proposing.
Right.
I think the previous slide, go back to that. Obviously, in the downtown master plan, identified a number of potential sites for some sort of residential type of infill development, of which this happened just to be one of them. And some of them would lend themselves a little bit differently to more of a high rise and what have you. So, but the point of it is while the residential market analysis indicated, with the number of individuals coming into the marketplace here being around 250 per year, you can see that there is ample opportunities for other types of development, particularly in the downtown area. This being one site in particular that, in this case, the developer thought would be a good project. And, I'll be honest with you, I do too, given its proximity to the downtown and understanding a little bit of the qualifying aspects of the tenants that would be there. And so, in some ways would be, young professionals. So
The market analysis said 67 new rental units per year could be added. And if we're talking about 40 to 50 with this, it doesn't preclude us from marketing these other key redevelopment sites for new development. And in particular, talked about the higher priced units such as townhouses would do better in the 900 plus range for rent along the riverfront or with vista views that overlook the river or riverfront parks. So we would still have room for continued growth even with this development.
Councilman Felder.
Regarding what you just said, the vast majority of those areas overlaps existing structures or parking lots, and pretty much the sites on that map that are closest to shovel-ready sites, it would not have a dramatic effect on how the city is able to function in terms of other parking issues without us constructing a parking structure in order to supplement the lost parking that would be incurred by this, either Monroe Bank and Trust, riverfront parking, the riverfront lot. It used to be the Laurel Finzel lot, but I know we don't call it that anymore. I don't really see a way of tearing any of those out without building a parking structure, and I don't know that a developer would come and build a parking structure so that they could facilitate the city of Monroe's parking needs and then proceed to buy their own building. I just don't see that happening. So I see Site 4 at Monroe and First is a near shovel-ready site, and then the fire department, and that's pretty much all we got on that map that I see a developer being able to move into right now.
See, and I would agree. Those are the two of the quicker ones that are shovel ready. But I think also looking at from again a parking management standpoint, there is a lot of empty spaces, and we need to start managing what we have a lot better than what we had. I will tell you the site number 3 on the riverfront is probably the one that does have a large parking lot, but at the same time, probably the greatest potential to provide the funding that you would need for signing some other parking that would go along with it. And I think, some of these are, again, if you took an aerial, maybe we can get back to it just for grins and giggles, if we were to pull an aerial and see how many empty spots that you would have throughout the downtown. And it may be just, if you look at it, I've done it years in other locations, year after year, looking at aerial photos of parking lots, and you see the same pattern year after year. So I think all of those are legitimate development sites. But each of them are going to require a little bit different parking solution. Much like this one here, the city and the county got to work together. Can we? Yep. But each of them is going to have a little different one. Talk about the one there at First and Monroe. Talking with Annette Knoll, there's a lot of open land to the west, even a block away, that you could conceivably put some more parking on the fringe of the downtown. So those are the type of things I think each of them are going to, bring their own little challenges. But I think clearly you can make it work. Some will be a little harder than the others, but clearly I think it's a doable plan.
Well, Your Honor, I think some of the other redevelopment sites that aren't even indicated on here, like for example on Macomb Street on the east side, is the Monroe Bank and Trust parking lot, which takes up about a half a block, that is still listed in gray, that probably 2 to 3 years from now, depending on what happens with their merger, some of those properties are going to be in play.
Yeah, there's additional sites certainly that can be redeveloped. We talk about the Whistle Stop. We talk about the site Councilman Iko Angeli just spoke of, but there's a few other ones. These were just the ones that were identified in the downtown master plan last year.
So I guess at this point in time, we kind of wanted to lay out as much detail as we possibly could to get the real dialogue going about, the incentives for affordable housing in the community, as well as, I think, a better understanding of what the missing middle is, the architectural aspects of it. So in part, that's part of the reason for laying it out the way we did. Let's everybody have an understanding of what's proposed. We got some definition challenges, I think, hopefully behind us, and certainly let's talk about the direction we're going to go, particularly in this project, but also in a broader general sense. So,
any questions or comments? Any questions for Mr. Pastu or comments regarding what the, I'll just say the appetite is for in relation not only to this project, but future development, and not only, well, from the master, the downtown master plan, which was identified and shown on the map, but also to what extent that would be and what we're looking at. Councilman Germaini.
What is the overall consensus of the county on this? I know we have some hoops to go through with the county and the church. Where are we with all of that?
If I, yeah, there we go. Certainly, I can tell you, county administration is very, very supportive of working with us. I think in general, when the compelling case is made by Mr. Bosonic, the county commissioners usually will, weigh in a positive. I think there was some positive comments at the meeting a couple weeks ago. But I think in general, all of us, whether it's city or county, are trying to utilize our resources to their most effective and efficient use. And I think there's a general recognition is that we have a lot of surface parking. And if we do a better job of managing it, we can expand our tax base. And I think certainly I can speak for Mr. Bosonic that he's very interested in pursuing that. We've got a campus, county city campus, and I think, through good thought and management that we can utilize the land use around us much more effectively and provide the parking that we need for not only our employees, our visitors, jurors, and address even some security issues that would go along with it related to judges and court staff. So I think we're, very, very interested in working together to that end.
Are they supported with this timeline?
Oh, yeah, I think, and yeah, there's no doubt they realize it's tight, but the opportunity itself, they still have some ongoing negotiations with Solid Rock Church that would have to be resolved, but clearly committed to try and make that work for this project.
So if the church says no, it's a no-go, correct?
Well, there's a little more details, the nuances of the lease agreement that they have, so they're going to have to do a little more research and on that aspect of it. But I will tell you, in a general sense, there is a commitment from administration to try and make a much better use of the land area that we have around our campus.
Okay.
Well, the other
Councilman?
part of the policy discussion is with LIHTC is, we seem to, we have the market study, but then we also have current conditions in the city where we have quite a few rental properties, single-family homes that have been converted into rental properties as a result of the Great Recession. And LIHTC can be used on a single site basis too, to actually renovate existing single-family rental properties. If you have a housing commission or you have a developer that is inclined to put that kind of project together, because some of the money for LIHTC is actually reserved for preservation projects. So that's part of the bucket of money that they have is new construction also in the area of preservation. The one thing that I'm kind of concerned about is the speed at which this thing the number of hoops that we have to jump in the next 2.5 months when they have a round in October. And I think the question that we as a council have to address is if we want to use LIHTC as a incentive, because we're going to have to give a pilot, which is we're going to have to forego taxes. If we're going to have to lay all these incentives out on the table to encourage this project, then why aren't we, since we own the property and along with the county, why aren't we going out for requests for qualifications to other LIHTC developers to see what they can bring to the table? Because you have PS Equities, you have Hollander, Spire, they're new into the state, but you have other firms in the state of Michigan, developers that specialize on LIHTC housing. And if the city were to say we would like to encourage a project, I don't know why we wouldn't be interested to see what they can bring to the table, why we're just jumping at the first one and having to do it extremely fast. Because there are other things that could go into this building. I mean, I'd like to see the hardcore numbers of what the mixed integrated income is going to be. How many people are going to be at the 50% of AMI? How many people are going to be at 80% AMI? and what the unit distribution is gonna be. I would also like to see, if we're gonna talk about this type of a building based on our own zoning, is that the first floor in a residential building in a downtown, first floor can't have residential units on it. So we're gonna have to waive that requirement through the PD process. So then the question comes up, if we had a little bit more time to look at it, and I'll throw this out, okay, probably raise some eyebrows. Part of the parking for this project was not based on our current code of 1.5 parking spaces per unit. I think when I saw their original pro forma, they were gonna put in 50 units, they were only gonna provide like 30 parking spaces. So they're basically setting the project up for people that would either walk downtown or that rely on public transit, which I don't have a problem with. But if we're gonna do that, and this project is gonna require public transit, then why aren't we looking at putting the transfer station in the first floor of this mixed-use project? Okay, which is then a non-residential use, which then is conforming to our zoning ordinance. These are the type of issues that we need to address. You can't do it within 2.5 months. So these are some other opportunities we should be taking a look at. And is there a need for maybe some retail or some office space? My God, I would love to put attorneys' offices in that building and get them out of the downtown. You know, sorry. But these are some things that, as a community, we need to talk about, and you can't do it when you got to go through a timetable where you got to jump through hoops. You can't even have a reasonable discussion in terms of how a project like this could actually evolve. So these are some of my issues, is that we don't even have time to think on this. We just got to act. Don't like doing that. Especially a project where the developer's got to guarantee to the state that he's going to have the tax credits in place for 15 to 30 years. So I think that's why we need to have a policy discussion.
Other comments, council? You know, when we started this conversation a few meetings ago, and it was, you know, the idea is, do we need new? And I think some of that conversation has come out in the last couple presentations of ours. Units, potential units where they could be. I think Councilman Eichel made a comment, and I didn't, you know, I guess if there's awareness that, you know, this program could be used for preservation of his existing, but I'd like to see how often that's actually done. And I'm not saying it's not done. I just don't know. Because I think of some of the housing stock that we have for those that are renting maybe within the same frame of income and employment. Quite honestly, they're not acceptable. We all know we have many rental properties, conversions of homes to rentals in our community, but unfortunately, not all, but some that own don't seem to put the equity back into the home. And therefore, the home gets a challenge to be managed. So at the same token, I look at this and say, it's the idea of need is not adding to that, as what it said was the need for newer. And I think if we can make newer and available for those that are either here or moving in, I think that makes a better quality of life. At the same time, we still have to administratively figure out how we're going to address the backside, which is those that are left. Because you're right, I think we're all understand there's a percentage in which we'll want to have for opportunities for rental, and we're at probably the high end. But just adding, but we have to also look at the backside. So I'm not opposed to looking at adding new units, and especially the fact they're going to be more livable for those that are in our community. It's also, we have to look, as part of my policy thought, is how do we make sure we continue to address those that are not acceptable? I know we have rental inspections, I know we have other things, but I think it's going to take aggressive path as a policy as well of what's going to be tolerable in our neighborhoods. When I look at the map and the locations that were on there, you know, parking is continues to be a discussion. I know there's going to be a discussion through not only the city, but with the DDA had it this morning at their meeting about looking forward of how we manage that, whether it be metered, not metered, where that is or not. I think that's also something that's in the works when we look broad extension. I look at the property that's on that map that's down along the river off of Macomb, and I would think if there was the potential to put townhouses along there and overlooking the river, I think they would be successful. And I don't think you can put more than what the site would allow, but at the same time, the parking that's missing, the parking has to be provided there for those that would be living there. And the analysis as well as what parking lots are used and when they're used, I think it's kind of what Mr. Pastu was saying. We have lots that are off the edges that sometimes are used and aren't used at all. So I'm not sure that I'd have to look back at what Councilman said on the amount of spaces and why that is at that number. Maybe it's for the reason which he said, the anticipation that they are going to be having those that are not car owners, but more of transit use or walking. But isn't that what we're looking for when we talk about downtown? We talk about the loft apartments, and which continue to expand, and are some. I think people would be surprised on a tour to see what those loft apartments look like that are being done in the last 5-10 years, and then I'll say the value which they have. So, but I'm not sure all those are driving either. So, on a broader policy discussion, I guess looking at the council are these the projects that we at least will have a discussion on and entertain if it meets the criteria that we want to set forward? Is it the number? Is it the percent of the AMI, which is at 60? Is it 80? It appears it's 80, but what is, I'd like to see the chart as well. What does that mean and what value? And then look around and see who are those members in our community that are earning that income and that would qualify. Without having that, I don't, not only the council, but the public to understand that. Unfortunately, when they hear certain terms, they think they just assume what that is in their own mind. We have to make sure we have that as factual. Other comments from council? I don't know if that's helping you yet today or not, Vince. I know you do need more. The idea
I
is
need more. That I really, part of what it is, I think, certainly there's aspects of this project I need your feedback on, but in a broader sense, is this what you are comfortable with? And it is a very, very tight schedule. Make no mistake about it.
Your Honor, just, I know discussing some things over with the Spire people when they came to the last meeting, I had questioned them about possibly visiting one of their properties to get some input from some of their people. I think that, if we do some dirt digging, so to speak, find out what they have, maybe that would satisfy some of Councilman Michelangelo's questions as far as what type of contractor we're working with, what type of people we're working with. So I agree, it is a good idea. If it's available to other contractors, why not make it available to other contractors? Unless this contractor is on the up and up, which I'd take him for it.
Yeah.
My thought, Your Honor, is that we have a site that's owned by the city, and the county's obviously indicated a willingness to contribute their property to a redevelopment site. I think the city needs to articulate what its vision is for the property, and then it needs to go out and find a developer that's willing to match that vision. I'm comfortable with redeveloping the property over there for residential. I'm kind of concerned about the intensity that these guys are proposing. I like the idea that was in our downtown master plan where the scale was smaller, it fit more into the residential neighborhood. If LIHTC is the way that they need to finance a portion of the project, they can certainly do it with less units too. There's nothing saying that it's got to be 50. When I looked at the MISHTA award in December for 2019 projects, they were small and they were large. They were all over the place. So I will tell council, for those of you that don't remember, when the city of Monroe was given the Lazy Boy factory over on Union and 7th Street. The city was the one that put the vision together for the adaptive reuse. And the city went out for proposal and received 3 proposals for 3 developers. And the one that was selected was out of Boston, Massachusetts, that had the most experience on factory redevelopment. They did the ones in Lowell, Massachusetts. So the city had, back in the 80s, actually did the kind of the same thing where they put the vision together, then they went out through an RFP and they found three developers that submitted proposals. They went through an interview process and they selected the preferred one. So it can be done. So I agree with the mayor. One of my concerns is, and I think I articulated this a couple of weeks ago, is that when you build a new project like this, people that are currently living in the community in rental property obviously have the right to have a better place to live. But then there's a vacuum created, and then that vacuum then is filled by another family. And part of our housing policy is that I don't think that we're adequately addressing is the rental inspection program. We're only doing each unit on a 3-year rotation, and that's not enough in today's market. A house can be destroyed in a year. And I think if we're going to have a public or a housing policy, it's got to be both on the inspection and on the enforcement side, as well as it is encouraging new construction and development. But you can't favor one over the other one, or else we're going to end up with neighborhoods that are in decline, and we're going to have other problems that we're going to be confronted with. So. If the council's looking, my concern is timing. There's too many things, too many decisions that have to be made by too many groups within 2.5 months, when there's another round coming up in October that would give everybody a little bit of time to really take a look at the project, answer some of the questions that we all have. That's my thought.
Councilwoman Witten?
It seems that it's just good practice to always get at least 3 bids. You know, in any other area that I've ever worked in, we always had to have 3 bids in order to move forward. I picture this as, you know, our goal is to make downtown thrive. And this might be totally overwhelming, 50 units. So I would be interested in getting 3 bids.
If there's other comments, Councilman Felder?
I love the fact that we are looking at development in the downtown. I love the fact that there's interest in our downtown. I love the fact that we're looking at building vertically, because I feel like we're trapped by the townships, and that we are, by our current situation, very geographically selfish. We have to be geographically selfish. We have less land to work with and less available and vacant space to build on than the municipal jurisdictions that surround us. If I was in a township or I was on the county commission, I would jump at this project. My hesitation, representing the residents of the city of Monroe and trying to get the best deal for them, is this takes up a potential project from what might be a better deal. And there is not an infinite space in which these projects can take place. We are very limited. In the proposal that Spire Development put out itself, they detailed that proximity to the downtown and walkability to nearby retail and public services was a chief objective of what they were trying to accomplish, and the motivation for why they wanted to put the project where they were going to put it. Proximity to the downtown is certainly a commodity, but is a resource in short supply. And this would take that resource from another, perhaps more deserving project. Seeing if we were to get additional bids and see them and then assess at that time that we wanted to go in a different direction, wanted a different architectural layout, wanted a different type of housing stock to better fit what Councilman Angeli refers to as the missing middle and his description thereof. I think that we need to take that into account. The thing I'm drawn to is that part of the objective that was laid out both by the housing study and by the developer was that they were seeking young professionals to live in the property, young professionals and working family and the elderly. I see Mark Cochran as a young professional. I see Jody Egan as a young professional / working family. I see myself as a young professional / working family. And the guys who were pitching from Spire Development, who were pitching the job to us, I think were young professionals. But I doubt that any of us would be income eligible to be able to live in a property. Mark, I don't know what we pay you, but I think it's probably decent. I don't think that any of us could live in that property. But those are exactly the kinds of people that we're trying to attract. So I'm kind of caught there.
It's, if I may, I hate to interrupt on it, but I will tell you, every one of us with professional jobs started off not making a heck of a lot of money. Over time and experience and good luck and fortune, we do find our way up the income chain. But there are a lot of good young professionals, that this would be a good opportunity for them. And so I have to tell you, that's part of, much like what, just to expand upon what you're saying, it is intriguing, I think, as I think intuitively we think there's a demand for young professional housing, people just starting off, whether it's at the hospital or engineer, and they want to be in downtown where things are more active and vibrant. So it is a tough decision for council to weigh all these alternatives.
And that's kind of why I'm caught on it.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I'm caught on it. Because reading the report, I think the median rents for this area were $750 a month, $700 a month in that area. And 2/3 of new households moving in were seeking rents under $600 a month. I'm surprised they can even find rent in Monroe for under $600 a month, frankly. I was surprised that there was that much housing stress and there was that much demand for very modest income rents. And if there is that demand that exists and if there is housing stress in the community, which there seems to be some of, then I'm caught on the other side as well, because I certainly want to provide for the residents of the city and make sure that they are cared for and that they feel like they have some disposable income after they pay their rents or pay their mortgage. Those are just some thoughts.
Other questions or other comments from council? See any? Chair, please do.
We do have to make some decisions here. I'm just going to approach it as if there was a progression of support. Clearly, what we're going to have to do is, and I'm contemplating maybe a resolution to put before the city council regarding the sale of it, but also providing the direction to move forward with it. In the case of Spire, whether you want to meet a very tight deadline or you want to wait, I'm going to need some formal feedback one way or the other. And so, and again, based on their timeline for their April 1st application, we need to give some direction, not only for Spire, but staff as well, as to how we're going to proceed. And again, if there's a desire to move it into an October application, we need to give that direction as well. I do think it's a good project, and the question is it the right scale and the right location? That's always a little more open for debate, but clearly, I think intuitively there's demand for this type of project in our community, and so. But I got to move it along. So I'm going to put something on the agenda Monday night for council to consider, and just we'll from our end of it accept what direction you want to take it and build from there one way or the other. Do we go forward or take a different course of action?
What, may I ask, what's in the resolution that the council is going to be asked to take? Proceeding with the Spire development proposal?
Yeah, I think
and the schedule that you've laid out?
Yep. Yep, I think that, just so there's some structure to it, and that's part of what those, tonight, was to lay that out there. Okay, here's what you would have to do, the time frame. Here's the general framework with the pilot, the PUD direction that you would need as well. The general number of units from 40 to 50 is what they're proposing. So you'll have enough detail in there to make a decision whether you want to proceed with it or not. And obviously, there may be some hazards along the way. I mean, it's 2 months. It doesn't allow for a fumble or a misstep along here for them to not meet that April 1st deadline. But if we're going to go in that direction, we need to keep cracking on it. And in part, that's why we're here tonight as well.
Well, I mean,
so-
go ahead, Your Honor.
Okay, so I'll just say, looking forward, and this is maybe a discussion with Mr. Buzz, because as we move forward and looking these type of projects, because it is about property and is about contracts and agreements, I would assume that we require 5 votes as we move forward. I'm just, nobody's making decisions here, as we said, but just the questions and the comments that I'm hearing, I'm not sure that it's going to make that level, just from the time, the desire for, what as I heard was potential, other potential developers that could be contacted. The timeline, as you indicated, and was everybody recognizes is tight, and there's a lot of things that have to go through with the different commissions and stuff. So that's just what I see, but I'm just saying that as we move forward. Not opposed to seeing something at the council meeting coming forward, but those are probably the questions that'll come up. So just letting you know, that's what I see.
I wasn't counting heads very well, so
Count-
that's why I'm
I wasn't
putting it out
counting
that
heads
way. Is I
either.
need direction, and I think that, and that's probably in some ways the best way to formally put that out there is just have something on the table
Sure.
for action, and we go forward one way or the other with what happens next Monday.
And maybe between now and then, as information comes out and what's provided, we'll give because council has that the fact sheets and information to review beforehand, might answer some of their questions that were asked tonight in that realm. Those topics. There were some other comments as well, but size of the units as well. So unless there's other comments from council, Councilman Felder.
My only follow-up would be perhaps, I don't know, to the city manager, Mark Cochran. My understanding was the developers were not going to be interested in developing the property, if we did not engage in the pilot or the LIHTC. And so the follow-up question to that would be, if they fail on their tax credit application to MSHDA, would they still be interested in the development? Or do they anticipate that they're just going to back out if everything doesn't go right for them?
Looks like Mr. Buzz is going to speak something here.
If I may, Your Honor. So we've had initial discussions back and forth about what the purchase agreement would look like, and one of the contingencies in that is approval through MSHDA for the LIHTC with a long, I'm going to say longer than normal due diligence period, which was in part of the summary that I gave you. I mean, they're talking about due diligence through April of 2020. So basically waiting that period out, being able to do their investigation. I mean, that's in the standpoint of a normal real estate transaction, a very long inspection and due diligence period. I will say my impression in that discussion is they want to do this project or they're not interested. That's at least my read on it based on what they've provided is back and forth about the agreement thus far.
Okay.
Your Honor.
He may have, I would just say, Councilman may have a follow-up. I just want to say.
Okay.
I just want to be sure that they're interested in the project and it's not contingent. The project does not hinge on profitability on their part pending a government subsidy. I would like a developer to be interested in the project regardless and then pursue incentives from that point. I don't want it to be contingent upon the incentives that they may or may not receive. That's all.
Councilman Michelangelo.
I'm assuming the due diligence period, I think they, in your thing, you had like 220 days or whatever until April of 2020 is, they have an application that's due in April, and they don't MSHDA doesn't announce the award for the April until around August. Then they have another one in October. They don't announce that award until January, which gives them really 2 rounds to finesse the application through. But I think the thing I'm uncomfortable with is the fact that we're going to have a resolution on the agenda where we're going to be asked basically to thumbs up or thumbs down on this project from Spire, when personally, I don't think we should be put in that position. I mean, I'm looking at it from the city's point of view. We have a piece of property that we're willing to give up to a developer, and based on the discussion on land acquisition, if the developer tears down the fire station, we'll give it to them for $1. We're also willing to, if we're willing to do a pilot for Spire, would be willing to do a pilot for any other developer. And then we have some other incentives like plan unit development we're willing to use. I mean, we could put all of that together kind of in a 1-page RFP and send it out to 3 or 4 developers to see who's going to come to the table and what kind of project they're going to offer the community. Then that's where you do the thumbs up or thumbs down. I would rather see a resolution coming from the city administration saying that the council's in favor of development of the site. The council's in favor of using, approving a LIHTC and a pilot if it's appropriate. And if the project is consistent with the downtown master plan and our housing study. I can agree with all those elements, but why do I have to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to Spire Development because they're the only developer that walked in the door saying, I want to build a LIHTC project? Because I think that sends the wrong message too. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're going to have an interesting discussion on Monday.
Let's see how it develops through the week.
Are we ready maybe tonight? I mean, to give us direction. I mean, I'll accept it tonight if you need more time.
We have a council person that's not here also, so. Councilman Felder may add that. I still don't see that there's sufficient support, but I'll leave it to the council members. But I guess maybe the better way to say this, the Councilman Ecolangeli in I just said a general resolution, because I'm sure it's more than just a general resolution, but it's not specific to the project that's being discussed. It's more of a supportive of considering that if put out through a different process. That's what I'm hearing, and at least 3 council members seem to be in that area, but I'm not sure. Councilman Felder, you have all the comments?
Yeah, I just want to echo those sentiments. I would be more than happy to accept the Spire project as a proposal, as one of the proposals that we bid out to even. I'm perfectly happy to do that, but we're not even vacated out of the fire station and already we have interest in the property. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice to say yes to the first offer that walks through the door.
So the calendar's challenging as well then. Okay. That's what I'm hearing. So unless there's other comments, I don't want to get into deliberation of that nature for this meeting.
I'm good.
You want, maybe I won't put the resolution together, but I mean, if there's general consensus, I shouldn't say general consensus, but if there's not 5 to go forward with a sale, there's no point in pursuing this
Right.
anyways, and it would be easier for me to know tonight, and then we could proceed in it's not like this ends, with Spire and or any other development, but if I just need a strong sense, if you're not going to pursue it, that's we just need to know. And that's what you're saying. I'm looking at the mayor.
That's at least what I'm hearing. And
Okay.
I think as Councilman Feller said, it's not the project, it's not there's items of the project, but it's the opportunity for other opportunities besides what's presented before us now, because the state of the property currently is not to where it's going to need to be for somebody to develop at this time, is what I'm hearing. That's what I hear.
The mayor's hearing it right.
Yeah, I think that's,
right.
but if we're, I guess I'll see if there's other conversation, but, how that moves forward, whether it with, on Monday with any sense or not. But as Councilman Akalanji said, I guess I'll wait and see if the administration decides to do that or not. If not, then we'll have to regroup and really have a further discussion regarding policy and development of this and the time frame in which we want to see that go out for additional considerations. That's what I hear. Is there any other comment from council?
Very good.
Okay, gotta go back to my sheet. I don't believe there's anything else left on the count. Is that correct? Next count? Correct.
Opportunity for citizen comments.
Okay, with that, is any comments from those present here this evening? Open comment, any comment from those present? Seeing none, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Lamore, supported by Councilman Felder to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Whitman? Michaelangeli? Yes. Germaini? Yes. Lamore?
Yes.
Felder?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Thank you all. And thank you for the coming for the special meeting.